This happened a week ago. I'm Jake and I'm 34. I wanted to take a break from my job as a software engineer. So, I planned a week-long hiking trip in the Appalachians. I thought I could clear my head. I felt confident about going out there alone. At first it was peaceful. Just me, the trees, and the creek nearby. But the memories of what happened still haunt me. On the second evening I made a campfire. It was nice at first. Then I heard rustling in the bushes. I thought it was a raccoon. I brushed it off, trying to enjoy the warm fire. But after a while I realized it sounded too big for a raccoon. I shook it off and tried to ignore it. The next morning I woke up early. I hiked deeper into the woods. I noticed strange markings on the trees, deep scratches. They looked like claws had dug in. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I kept hiking. As dark fell again, I saw shadows moving near the tree line. I felt uneasy. I thought I heard whispers too. It was low and faint, like someone was watching me. My heart raced. Maybe I was just imagining things. I barely slept that night. By the third day I began to feel paranoid. That evening I sat by the fire. I saw something dart behind a tree. It was quick and dark. I squinted and tried to make it out, but nothing was there. My heart raced again. I felt a heavy gaze on me as if something stood nearby. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed, but the woods stayed silent. It made my skin crawl. As night fell, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. The woods seemed alive. I shivered as the air felt thick. I thought I heard footsteps, and every time I turned around, there was nothing. I found myself staring into the trees, feeling small and terrified. Was I losing my mind? I don't know what happened that trip. The fear grew inside me. I went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Every sound seemed amplified. Finally, I decided to pack up early. The journey back felt heavy. I couldn't shake that feeling of being watched. As I walked along the overgrown trail, a sense of dread filled me. I remembered those scratches on the trees and those whispers. Were they real? Or was I going crazy? I tried to push it aside, but I felt the weight of something unseen following me. When I reached my car, relief pulsed through me. But just as I turned to lock the door, I heard a branch snap behind me. I spun around. Nobody was there. The woods were empty, but the feeling remained. Whatever it was, it stayed with me. I still think about it every day. I wonder if it was real or just my mind playing tricks on me. Then again, maybe some things in the dark are meant to stay hidden. The drive home felt endless. My thoughts raced, swirling around the events of the trip. Each rustle of the wind made me jump, and every shadow along the road made my heart pound. I was home now, but it didn't feel safe. I still felt like something had followed me. The next morning I woke up late. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of the night. My phone buzzed incessantly, texts from my friends checking in. I hadn't told anyone about the trip yet. I hesitated, then typed out a quick message about venturing into the mountains. "How was the hike? Did you see any bears?" one text read. I smiled at the thought, but quickly pushed it aside. There was something more pressing in my mind. As the day wore on, I tried to return to normal life. I made coffee, answered emails, but the unease lingered. I found myself constantly looking out the window, as though expecting to see something lurking in the yard. When night fell, I decided to distract myself with a movie. Comfort food and familiar faces on screen were supposed to help. But suddenly I heard it. A soft knock, then a scrape at the door. My pulse quickened. My heart sank. I paused the movie and listened. Another knock. I stood frozen, straining to hear. Was it a trick of the wind, or was someone outside? I approached the door cautiously. I glanced through the peephole but saw nothing. I opened the door slightly, peering into the dark. The porch light flickered, casting long shadows. Nothing seemed out of place. Just empty night. I laughed nervously at myself. Just a figment of my overactive imagination. Maybe I should call it a night. But then, I caught something in the corner of my eye. It was there, just beyond the trees at the edge of my yard. A dark shape, moving quickly. I squinted, heart hammering. I stepped outside, calling out, "Hello?" Is someone there? My voice echoed back weak and empty. The shape darted away as if startled. I barely caught a glimpse, too fast to identify. Then came the whispers. That same low, faint sound I had heard in the woods. It drifted through the air, chilling me to my core. I stumbled back, heart racing. That wasn't real. Not here, not now. I slammed the door shut, locking it tight. I leaned against it, breathing heavily. I'd been so desperate to shake off the feeling of being watched. Yet it only had grown stronger. This wasn't over. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table, unable to calm my nerves. I pulled out my laptop, searching for anything linked to my experiences. I stumbled onto forums filled with strange encounters from other hikers. They spoke of shadowy figures and the feeling of being followed. I clicked through story after story. They echoed my fears, chilling me further. That's when I saw it. A post dated just a few weeks before my trip. It described markings on trees and the same whispered sounds. The author claimed they weren't alone in the woods either, but the worst still lay ahead. I had to know what happened next. Fear tightened in my chest as I read the last line. Whatever it is, it's still out there. I slammed my laptop shut. The woods had something sinister to share, and I was caught in the middle. I had to find out what was real and what wasn't. But part of me feared that some things are better left undiscovered. The next day, I felt the weight of my unease pressing down on me. I needed to find answers, but a part of me wanted to retreat into the comfort of ignorance. I decided to go for a walk, to clear my head. The bright sun was a stark contrast to the darkness that dwelled within me. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, was out in her front yard. I hesitated, but I needed to talk to someone. "Hey, how's everything?" she called out, waving me over. I approached her, forcing a smile. "It's fine," I replied, avoiding her gaze. "Just needed some fresh air." She studied me with concern. "You look a bit pale. Everything okay?" "I just came back from a hike," I said, trying to downplay it. "You know how it can be, out there in nature." "Nature can be strange sometimes," she said, her tone lightening a bit but with an edge of seriousness. "You never know what's watching you." Her words caused a shiver to run down my spine. I forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. "Yeah, I guess. Just a little too much coffee this morning, I suppose." She nodded, but I could tell she sensed my unease. I excused myself and walked back home, feeling her gaze linger on my back. Once inside, I continued my search. I looked up more stories and reports of strange sounds and sightings. It felt like every page I read echoed my own experience. As I scrolled, one post caught my attention. It mentioned a local legend about a creature that could move between shadows. The account was vague but hinted at a pattern. Sightings happened after hikes in nearby woods. Then I noticed something odd. The post was dated just the day before my hike. Heart racing, I read it again. The author detailed their fear of being followed, just like I felt. A sudden thought paralyzed me. What if the creature was real and had been watching all along? Desperate for distraction, I grabbed my phone and called my friend Jake. Maybe talking to someone about this would help. He answered on the second ring. "Dude, what's up?" he asked casually. "I don't know. I just feel a bit off. I went hiking recently and some strange stuff happened. I probably sound crazy." "You didn't encounter Bigfoot, did you?" he joked, but I didn't laugh. "Seriously, Jake. There were noises, whispers. And when I got home, it felt like I was being watched. I don't know what to make of it." He paused, the teasing tone vanishing. "Maybe it was just your imagination. You're probably fine." "That's what I thought," I said. "But it's still happening. I keep hearing things at night." "I'll come over tonight," Jake offered. "We can hang out and watch some movies. You'll feel better." "Yeah, that sounds good." I hung up feeling slightly reassured. But as the sun set, it didn't take long for that reassurance to fade. The night spread its dark arms around me, and I found myself staring out the window once again. Just then I caught movement. A shadow flitted between the trees. This time it lingered longer. My heart sank as my unease solidified into fear. Something was out there. I rushed to grab my jacket, ignoring the knot in my stomach. If I was going to see what was haunting me, then I would confront it head on. Taking a deep breath, I stepped outside, the night air cold against my skin. The whispers returned, drifting on the wind like a sinister lullaby. I was determined to find answers, but as I moved closer to the edge of my yard, my breath caught. There, hidden just behind the trees, a pair of glowing eyes stared back at me. I froze, unable to move or scream. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, disoriented as the darkness pressed heavily against my eyelids. The cold air stung my cheeks, and I realized I was still outside. Panic flooded my thoughts. What had just happened? Had I fainted? I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. I could still sense a presence. The sound of rustling leaves filled the silence, and I could feel the tension in the air. Slowly, I turned back toward the trees, praying I had imagined it. But there was no mistaking the feeling. Something was watching me. "Hello?" My voice quivered, barely above a whisper. No answer came, only the rustle of branches in the wind. As I stepped closer, I caught a glimmer among the shadows. The glowing eyes were gone, but I felt a chill skitter across my skin, tightening my nerves. I needed to get inside, away from whatever this was. Just as I turned to rush back to the house, I heard the whispers again. They echoed around me, soft yet clear, as if someone were speaking right into my ear. "Come." I felt a sudden compulsion to follow, a pull stronger than my fear. But I fought against it. "No," I shouted, shaking my head. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a root. The whispers faded, but the unease twisted within me, growing more intense. I stumbled back into my yard, nearly tripping on the porch steps. I threw myself inside, slamming the door shut behind me. My heart pounded in my chest as I locked it tight. The familiar sounds of the house felt safe, but I knew the peace was temporary. I leaned against the door, gasping for breath. My phone buzzed loudly on the table, shattering the silence. It was Jake. "Hey man, just checking in. How's it going?" he asked, his voice calm and cheerful. "Not great," I said, feeling the panic rising again. "Something weird happened. I think there's something out there." "What do you mean?" he asked, suddenly serious. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. I just saw something. I think it was watching me. And there were whispers," I stammered, trying to keep my thoughts clear. "Whispers? Dude, you're freaking me out. Maybe you should just come inside and stay put until I get there." "Yeah, I'm inside," I replied, but a shiver ran down my spine again. "But I don't know how I'm supposed to stay calm like this." "Look, just try to breathe. I'll be there soon," he said. The comfort of his voice helped, even if just a little. I hung up and checked the locks again, moving through the house like a caged animal. Every creak of the floorboard sent a jolt of fear through me. I glanced out the window, half expecting to see those glowing eyes again. That's when I saw it. A silhouette flitting between the trees, quick and elusive. I blinked, and it vanished, leaving me questioning my sanity. My heart raced as my thoughts spiraled. What if I wasn't the only one who felt drawn to the darkness? The sound of footsteps echoed outside, and I felt my stomach drop. I couldn't see anything through the window, but I had to know. I gripped the curtain and pulled it aside just a bit. Nobody stood there. Only silence filled the night. I was about to turn away when I noticed something glinting in the moonlight just at the edge of the forest. A shape moved, a different shape. What was it? I backed away from the window, my pulse thrumming in my ears. Whatever it was, I had to find out. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to confront it. My choices loomed before me, to uncover the truth or to flee. Either way, the night was far from over. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. I needed to know what was out there. The pull from the wilderness was almost magnetic, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I had sensed wanted me to follow. But why? Steeling myself, I headed for the door again. I had to peek outside. I had to confront this unknown. With shaking hands, I twisted the knob and stepped into the night. The cool air hit me like a wave, invigorating and terrifying. My heart pounded as I glanced around the yard, searching for any sign of the silhouette. The moon hung high, casting long shadows that danced around the trees. Every twitch of a branch felt like a signal, urging me deeper into the woods. I hesitated at the edge of the yard, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. Maybe it was just a raccoon or something, I whispered to myself, trying to calm my racing heart. But that glint from before still held my attention. I took a cautious step forward, keeping my eyes locked onto the forest. As I crossed the threshold, a whisper brushed against my ear again, sending chills spiraling down my spine. This time, I couldn't make out the words. It was as if the sound itself was waiting for me to decipher its meaning. Moving slowly, I stepped under the canopy of trees. The ground was uneven, littered with leaves and twigs that cracked under my weight. I paused, straining my ears to catch whatever was lurking among the shadows. I should turn back, I thought, but the urge to discover the source of my dread pulled me deeper. Suddenly, a sharp movement caught my attention. A shadow flitted between two trees, quick and disorienting. I squinted but saw nothing different, only darkness. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but I pressed on, compelled by a need to unearth the truth. Then I stumbled upon a small clearing. A narrow beam of moonlight illuminated the center, revealing a rustic stone circle, strangely out of place among the trees. My breath hitched. It felt like a scene from a horror movie, and I was the unsuspecting victim. As I stepped closer, something glimmered within the stones. A small object partially buried in the soil. Without thinking, I knelt down and brushed aside the dirt. My fingers brushed against cold metal and I pulled out what looked like a locket. It was intricately designed, but what struck me most was the faint warmth radiating from it, a contradictory pulse of life in the chilling night. Before I could inspect it further, a sudden rustle came from behind me. My heart dropped as I turned, holding the locket tightly. I wasn't alone anymore. The silhouette had returned, tall and imposing. I could barely make out a face, a flash of eyes and a wide grin that didn't seem to belong to any creature I recognized. The urge to run warred with the instinct to confront it. Then out of nowhere the whispers surged again, more insistent this time. "Come," they beckoned, drowning my thoughts in an overwhelming urge to obey. I was frozen in place, clenching the locket, torn between terror and an inexplicable curiosity. Then, without warning, the figure darted into the tree line, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. In its wake, the night felt heavier, like the forest itself held its breath. The whispers ceased, leaving an eerie silence. My mind raced. Did I just make things worse? Desperation filled me. I turned to flee back home, but as I took that first step, I heard something. The sound of laughter. It echoed, cutting through the quiet darkness. Someone was watching again. The laughter hung in the air like a dark cloud, heavy and unsettling. My heart raced as I whipped around, scanning the shadows that surrounded me. The sound was alive, vibrant, and filled with an unfamiliar malice. I couldn't ignore it. It pierced through the brief moment of silence, twisting my fear into urgent dread. "Hello?" I called out, my voice betraying me as it trembled. There was no answer, only the eerie rustling of leaves in the wind. I took a cautious step back, thoughts swirling in my head. Should I run? Try to find whoever, or whatever, was in the woods with me? The locket in my hand felt warm, almost as if it were pulsating with some kind of energy. I turned back to the stone circle, the object in my palm drawing me in. It felt important, almost like it had a life of its own. I held it up to the light, examining the intricate carvings etched into its surface. As I did, the laughter flared up again, this time closer and more agitated. Panic coursed through me. I needed to decide, and fast. I started to back away from the clearing, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking my every movement. The trees stood tall and ancient, their gnarled branches reaching toward me like skeletal hands. Just as I thought I was going to make it back to solid ground, my foot snagged on a root that jutted out of the soil. I stumbled and nearly fell, but I managed to right myself and continued towards my house, my only safe haven. That's when I heard it. A low growl, deep and resonant, vibrated through the ground beneath me. I paused mid-step, terror gripping my throat. It came from the thicket to my left, just beyond the last line of trees. I had to see what was making that noise. Before I could think better of it, I turned to face the sound. It was a mistake. There, half hidden in the shadows, stood a creature. Covered in dark fur and with glowing eyes, it was like nothing I had ever seen. It was larger than any dog I'd encountered, and its snout twisted into a snarl, teeth bared. I was frozen, trapped by the weight of its gaze. But there was something else, another shadow behind it. I looked and my breath hitched. Just beyond the first creature stood a second, something smaller, yet just as menacing. My mind raced. I had to get out. The whispers returned, clearer now, urging me toward the stones. Come to us, they beckoned, but I did the opposite. I turned, adrenaline kicking in, and sprinted back toward the house. Twigs snapped beneath my feet as I fled. I could hear the creatures moving behind me, their breath heavy and labored, the growl giving way to a series of howling calls. The sound mixed with the laughter, creating a cacophony of terror that pushed me to run faster. Each breath felt like fire in my lungs. I broke through the tree line and stumbled into my yard. I glanced back over my shoulder just long enough to see the two creatures emerge from the darkness. Their forms were silhouettes against the moonlight, moving with a grace that belied their size. My stomach dropped. I dashed to the door, yanking it open and slamming it shut behind me. Panting, I leaned against the door, my heart racing. Was that it? Had I escaped? Then, just as I began to calm down, a soft knock echoed from the front of the house. I froze, knowing I wasn't alone after all. Who, or what, could be outside now? Tension coiled tightly in my chest as the knock echoed again, this time more insistent. My breath came in short bursts. I crept toward the window, peering through the curtain. Nothing, just darkness and the swaying of trees in the wind. I hesitated, caught between curiosity and fear. Another knock, this time louder. It felt deliberate. My heart raced as I considered my options. Should I call for help? What if the creatures were waiting for me to let my guard down? I scanned the living room for anything I could use for protection. A lamp? A kitchen knife? But nothing felt adequate against whatever had followed me from the woods. "Who's there?" I called out, attempting to sound brave, but my voice cracked. Silence answered my question, and for a moment I thought about retreating to my bedroom. But the idea of leaving the door unguarded filled me with dread. I couldn't risk that. Just then, I heard a soft rustling outside, followed by a light scrape against the door. It sent a fresh wave of terror through me. I remembered the locket in my pocket, its heat still lingering. I pulled it out, the carvings glowing faintly in the dim light of the room. A strange thought crossed my mind. Could it have some connection to the creatures? Perhaps it was a form of protection. With a shaky hand I held it up, the metal cool against my skin. "Stay back," I shouted, more for my own peace of mind than for any real confidence it might provide. The knocking stopped, but I could feel the tension outside, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Suddenly the doorknob rattled. I jumped back, fear washing over me again. Was someone trying to get in? Or something? I reached for my phone, desperately wanting to call someone, anyone, but all I could do was stare at the door, frozen. Then came a sound that surprised me. A gentle voice, soft as a whisper. "Help me, please." My heart skipped. Was it a child, or was my mind playing tricks? "Who are you?" I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's not safe out here," the voice insisted. "You have to let me in." I stepped closer to the door. What do you mean? Are you being chased?" "Yes, please," the voice pleaded again. But somewhere in the depth of my mind, I questioned the sincerity. As I debated whether to open the door, another knock echoed, harsh and demanding from the opposite side. I turned sharply, my heart pounding. Moments ago, it felt like I was the only one in the house. Now it was clear. Something was outside, waiting. In that moment, the air around me grew thick, loaded with a sense of predation. I was no longer safe in my own home. A new wave of panic crashed over me. I needed to act fast. I moved toward the door, torn between opening it to help whoever was outside or remaining inside, hoping whatever lurked out there would leave. Then my eyes caught a flicker of movement in the shadows beyond the window. A dark shape darting past. My stomach dropped. I grabbed the locket once more, my heart racing, and then everything went dark. I jolted awake, the sudden absence of light disorienting. My heart hammered in my chest and I blinked against the lingering darkness. The last thing I remembered was the flicker of movement outside. As my eyes adjusted, I realized the room was still. No knocks, no whispers. I took a step back, trying to gather my bearings. The locket lay near my feet, glowing faintly. I picked it up, feeling a sense of unease wash over me. Why was it glowing? I gingerly made my way to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. Outside, the night sky was filled with stars, but they offered little comfort. The trees swayed ominously, and the oppressive silence made my skin crawl. I took a deep breath, deciding I needed to find a light. The darkness engulfed me as I moved to the kitchen. I fumbled for the light switch, but my fingers found only cold wall. Panic surged again. Did the power go out? I found a flashlight in a drawer, its beam slicing through the shadows. I felt a tiny bit safer, but the weight of dread pressed heavily on my shoulders. Just as I was turning back toward the living room, the flashlight flickered and went out. My breath caught. The only source of light now was the locket, stubborn and glowing softly in the darkness. I gripped it tighter, almost like a lifeline. Then, a noise shattered the stillness. A series of thumps, rhythmic and unsettling, coming from just outside the back door. I froze, every instinct screaming for me to run, but my feet refused to budge. "Hello?" I called, my voice betraying a hint of fear. No answer came, just the faint sound of something scratching at the wood. I shone the beam from the flashlight toward the door, but the light barely reached the edge. I had to see what was there. Fingers trembling, I moved to the door, the locket casting a ghostly light against my face. As I peered through the small window at the top, I saw nothing but shadows. And then I caught it. A glimpse of something unnatural. A shape, low to the ground, almost fluid as it moved. I stumbled back, pulse racing. Another thump, heavier this time, came from the door. I could feel the cold creeping along my spine. Trying to suppress a scream, I turned the lock slowly, knowing I was risking everything. "Please, let me in," the gentle voice returned, now panicked, cutting through the dread that surrounded me. "They're coming." Who's coming?" I shouted back, but my voice was swallowed by the overwhelming darkness. That voice tugged at me, a thread of desperation pulling me toward the door. But my instincts yelled to escape, to hide. I was torn in two, caught between a plea for help and the fear of what lurked outside. Then, as if answering my hesitation, the doorknob rattled violently. I jumped, adrenaline surging through my veins. I had to make a choice. As I braced myself and turned the knob, I heard loud footsteps approaching from behind. Something paused just outside the door. Then everything went silent. My heart raced as a faint whisper broke the stillness. "Help!" And just like that, I felt like something I couldn't see was right behind me. I turned slowly, the locket still glowing gently in my hand. The voice from behind was a chilling breath on my neck. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding as I fought against the urge to flee. I knew what I had to do, but every instinct screamed that danger was closing in. "Who's there?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. My eyes darted toward the darkened corners of the living room, searching for the source of that whisper. Silence wrapped around me again. Then abruptly, the door burst open. The hinges creaked with a force that felt unnatural. I spun around, the beam of the flashlight spilling into the night. I saw nothing. Just the vast blackness of the backyard, trees looming like sentinels, their branches scratching against the window like bony fingers. "Come in," cried the voice again, more frantic now. It echoed across the space, pooling with urgency that seeped into my bones. I hesitated, remembering the shadow I had glimpsed before. But could I really just leave them out there? Was this a trap? Before I could decide, a figure stumbled through the door, collapsing right at my feet. I gasped, shining the flashlight down. It was a woman, disheveled and wide-eyed, shaking as if she had just been chased. Her clothes were torn, and dirt covered her skin. "Help me," she gasped, looking back toward the darkness outside. "You have to hide me." "From what?" I asked, afraid to know the answer. She hesitated, eyes darting nervously. "I don't know," she whispered, "but they can smell fear. I can't stay out there." She clutched the locket in my hand, her fingers brushing against mine. "It's the only thing that keeps them away." A chill ran through me. The locket was glowing only for me, yet this woman felt drawn to it too. "What do you mean? Who are you running from?" Before she could answer, I heard the unmistakable sound of something heavy moving. It was slow but persistent, coming closer to the open door. My instinct to flee fought with a desperate need to protect her. "We need to close the door," I shouted, urgency trailing behind my words. But she was too terrified to move. I threw my weight against the door, slamming it shut with a forceful thud. It shuddered, vibrating as if something outside pressed against it. I quickly locked it again. The woman backed away, her fingers gripping the locket tighter, but I could see panic beginning to set in. I took a deep breath and turned to her. "How do you know about this locket? What is it supposed to do?" Her eyes were wild and she opened her mouth to reply, but then a loud crash echoed from outside, splintering the silence apart. The door rattled violently against the frame, throwing me off balance. I staggered back, fighting to catch my breath. "I don't know how long we can hold them off. We need to find a place, something we can hide in," I said, my voice rising in urgency. "No," she shouted. "If they break in, it's over. We have to be ready." "What do you mean ready?" I stammered, picturing the dark figure from outside. That's when the door creaked, and instinctively I turned to look. The latch began to bend. My heart raced as I realized something was trying to force its way in. "Get back!" I yelled, as I prepared to brace against the door. And in that moment I understood that the night held far more horrors than I was prepared to face. As the door shook violently, I felt the very foundation of my sanity tremble. I pressed my back against it, heart pounding, as the woman's eyes widened in horror. "You have to fight. They know fear. Show no weakness," she shouted, desperation cracking her voice. "Easier said than done," I spat, struggling to keep the door closed as it bucked beneath the onslaught. Every rattling shake sent fresh waves of dread coursing through me, but I could feel something beyond the door, a malevolent energy, palpable and almost alive. The whispers were back, swirling in my mind, urging me to join them in the dark. "No matter what happens, don't let them in, just hold on," she urged, fumbling toward the only source of light, the locket still glowing faintly in my hand. The door shuddered again, the latch groaning under the strain. I could see cracks forming in the wood. "What do we do? How do we get out of here?" I yelled over the chaos. "Stay close to it. The light is our only chance," she said, eyes darting toward the shadow now looming outside the door. "They can be distracted, but only if we stand together." I hesitated, heart racing at the thought of fighting back against whatever was outside. "We can't hold this forever." "It's not just about holding it together, Jake," she hissed, her voice a mixture of urgency and determination. "We need to confront them and break the hold they have on us." With one last desperate shove, I threw my weight against the door. It held for a moment, and all I could hear was the frantic thumping of my heart and the sinister whispers clawing at the edge of my sanity. The locket pulsed in my hand as if responding to my fear. "Now! Use it!" she shouted, and I felt the locket's warmth surge through me, filling me with a fleeting sense of power. It was then that I understood. The light from the locket wasn't just a protective shield. It was a weapon. Taking a deep breath, I flipped the locket open, allowing the soft glow to illuminate the dark corners of the room. Immediately, the whispers grew louder, transforming into panicked pleas echoing around us, weaving into an overwhelming cacophony. But somehow, amidst the chaos, I found clarity. "Get ready," I shouted as I shifted my position to brace against the door. "Let's push back together." As I threw my shoulder against the door, the woman moved closer, her eyes locked onto the unknown forces threatening to break through. My heart raced as I felt the energy around us shift. I squeezed the locket tighter, willing it to unleash whatever magic it harbored within. "On 3, I yelled, my voice steadied by resolve. 1, 2, 3. With all my strength, I pushed the door forward. The shadows swirling on the other side rippled in response, hissing like angry ghosts. The door held for a brief moment before it splintered and burst open, revealing a void of darkness and glowing eyes beyond. But this time our fear morphed into defiance. As the light from the locket erupted outward, the shadows recoiled, their growls a mixture of frustration and fury. "Come back," the sinister whispers pleaded, but I felt the bond beginning to waver with each flicker of light. It was working. "Now, together," she shouted, and we stepped forward into the darkness, illuminating the void with the locket. Shadows dissipated, revealing the fears I had only dared to imagine. Figures flitted past, screeching with rage, but the light took hold, forcing them back. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, they vanished like mist at dawn. The whispers faded into the ether, leaving only an unsettling silence in their wake. Panting heavily, I watched as the faint glow of the locket dimmed, returning to its normal state. We were safe, for now. The woman slumped against me, relief washing over her. "What just happened?" I gasped, still trying to comprehend the experience. "We broke their hold," she replied, her voice a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "But it isn't over. They'll come back." "Why?" I pressed, doubt creeping in. "What are they?" She shook her head, eyes distant. "I don't know, but the longer we stay here, the stronger they will become. We need to leave this place. The woods, they're connected, Jake." Her words hung in the air as reality crashed back in. The creatures weren't just figments of the darkness. They were linked to the very heart of the forest. But leaving meant facing the ethereal uncertainties lurking within. I took a moment, breathing in the electric tension that gripped the air. "And what about the locket?" I asked quietly, glancing down at it again. "It's powerful, but it can't keep them away forever. We must find a way to break that connection," she replied, determination flickering in her eyes. A shiver raced down my spine as I contemplated the journey that still lay ahead. The woods still called to me, heaven and hell intertwined. Whatever reality I had stumbled into wasn't finished. We had survived this encounter, but the deeper questions still loomed. What exactly were we running from? What were the shadows in the forest? And more importantly, how could we truly break free? "I guess we better figure that out," I said, hope tinged with uncertainty. "Yes," she nodded, her gaze steady. We had escaped tonight, but when dawn broke, we would need to confront whatever awaited us in the shadows. We would uncover the truth behind the darkness lurking in those ancient woods, together. And with that fragile alliance, the weight of the unknown bore heavily on both of us, leaving lingering questions swirling around like the howling wind beyond the walls of my home.